Faye's body was moved in the shadow of the night.
There are no adequate words to express the depth of our sadness and our sympathy for Faye's parents.
Tonight, some answers into what happened to this sweet little girl.
Faye's death was a homicide and took place within only a few hours after she was abducted.
Faye Swetlik quickly grabbed all of our hearts, and this case became and will always remain very personal for each of us.
And at this hour, the community is coming together to honor and remember the life of 6-year-old Faye Marie Swetlik. Good Tuesday evening, and thank you so much for joining us for Friends at 5. I'm Darcy Strickland.
And I'm J.R. Berry. We began tonight with an update on the Faye Swetlik murder investigation. It's been 8 days since she disappeared, and today the coroner released the child's cause of death.
Lexington County Coroner Margaret Fisher announced that she died by asphyxiation just hours after she was abducted.
Faye Swetlik's death did not occur at the location where her body was discovered. And her body had not been at that location. Her body had been at that location for only a short time. We have concluded that Faye's death was a homicide and took place within only a few hours after she was abducted. The cause of Faye's death has been ruled asphyxiation. Unless there is new evidence pertinent to the investigation of my office, we will not release any additional information regarding Faye Marie Swetlik.
Well, also at today's press conference, police gave a detailed look at their investigation into Faye's death.
Our Jacob Reynolds has more on that as he begins our team coverage. Jacob.
Darcy, JR, just about 2 hours ago, we heard in that press conference many of the details that led to the discovery of the body of 6-year-old Faye Swetlik. We had talked about that trash can discovery that made them hone in on that search area, and now we know law enforcement found a polka dot boot and a ladle with fresh dirt on it that they believe led to that search area, and then eventually it was Director Snellgrove, he confirmed in this press conference today, who found the body of 6-year-old Faye Swetlik. And a few moments later, other KC Department of Public Safety officers were informed there was a man bleeding at that house at 602 Piccadilly Square, and that's where they found the body of Cody Taylor. Director Snellgrove saying he was deceased by the time officers had arrived. Here's some more of those details we learned today at this press conference.
8 days ago at approximately 3:45 p.m., Faye Marie Swetlik was discovered to be missing by her mother. Her mother did what most parents would do. She called her friends, she gathered her neighbors, and she frantically looked around the neighborhood for her daughter. Having no luck, she placed a frantic call to 911 at approximately 5 p.m. By 5:03, KC officers were on the scene at Churchill Heights and were gathering information. They talked with family members and neighbors and began going through the neighborhood to look for Faye. Within 30 minutes of their arrival, officers notified the KC command staff, including myself, and all of us immediately responded to Churchill Heights and began asking for assistance from other local agencies. By 6 p.m., having so far not located Faye, both SLED and the FBI were contacted and immediate assistance was requested. At this time, we had 50 or more law enforcement officers, firefighters, and first responders on the scene, and we were doing organized canvasses door to door in searches of the neighborhood to initiate our first and initiated our first neighborhood perimeter search. Prior to Monday, many of you will remember we had a great deal of rain over a short period of time. We have areas of flooding and rough, dense terrain in our city. This includes the area directly around Churchill Heights neighborhood. Regardless of these conditions, all officers were asked to check every pool, creek, culvert, manhole, trash can, shed, play structure, woods, and anywhere else that a young girl could be. Over the next hour, our law enforcement presence grew to over 90 personnel. Both SLED and the FBI were on scene. A SLED helicopter assisted from the air, and numerous K-9 teams from several local agencies were in the area searching for Faye. Faye was placed in the NCIC, that's the National Crime Information Database, as a missing child. A BOLO, or Be on the Lookout For, was issued for Faye to every agency across our region. We placed pictures and information across social media, and it immediately was shared by thousands of people. While this was happening, the Lexington County Sheriff's Office and the Casey Department of Public Safety were setting up a mobile command unit in the middle of the neighborhood so that we could maintain a presence of officers in that area 24 hours a day until this was concluded. We also converted Casey City Hall into a much larger stationary command center for the more than 300 law enforcement officers and firefighters from across the region that joined in our search. For the remainder of the night, there was a heavy presence of first responders in and around the area. Casey officers shut down the neighborhood and were instructed to stop every car coming in and going out of the neighborhood and to talk to every person they saw to see if they had any information about Faye's whereabouts. By Tuesday morning, a dedicated Faye Swetlik hotline was set up and went live at our command center. We began roadblock operations at all entrances around the neighborhood. We spoke to everyone coming in and going out and asked for consent to look in their vehicles. Everyone was extremely cooperative, understanding, and very helpful. Our officers were provided with a standardized FBI questionnaire form that was specifically targeted to glean information to help us find Faye. This is what the officers used when they talked to anyone in reference to this case. That morning we did a coordinated effort with multiple agencies to go door to door to question all residents, friends, and visitors in all 280 plus homes in Churchill Heights. Our goal was to speak to every occupant of every residence, no matter how long it took. And we would also request consent to enter and look for anything that would lead us to find Faye. Grid searches of the perimeter of the neighborhood were also conducted multiple times. All the while, officers were again instructed to check every pool, creek, culvert, manhole, trash can, shed, or any other structure or area that a young girl may be in. K-9s continued to search, and on Wednesday, another round of grid and perimeter searches were conducted. Wednesday night, with all the current law enforcement operations taking place, we decided to bring another city department as a resource to help us find Faye. Thursday was the regular sanitation pickup day for Churchill Heights, and all residents were obviously aware of that. On Thursday morning, our officers diligently and methodically followed the Casey sanitation trucks through the neighborhood, and as each can was loaded and emptied into the back of a garbage truck, they methodically combed through it to see if they could find any piece of information or clue in hopes of finding something that would lead us to Faye. At approximately 10 a.m., a trash can near 602 Piccadilly Square was emptied, and as our officers went through it, they found a couple of items that were of significant importance. One was a child's polka dot boot, and the second was a soup ladle that had freshly dug dirt in it. I happened to be on scene at that time, and upon seeing these items, I called for assistance to do an additional and immediate grid search of the areas directly behind Londonderry and Piccadilly Square. As assistance was coming, I went into the woods behind the townhomes, and just before 10:30 a.m., I located the body of Faye Swetlik. At approximately 10:30, other Casey officers were notified of a residence that there was a man bleeding on the back patio. That was 602 Piccadilly Square. Officers immediately went to his aid and found a deceased white male. Immediately, SLED's crime scene unit collected various samples of DNA from both crime scenes and from inside 602 Piccadilly Square. That DNA, once tested, connected the unknown pieces of this horrific crime. I can tell you that the deceased male had been contacted and interviewed at 602 Piccadilly on Wednesday afternoon. He was cooperative and gave consent to agents to look through the house. Those agents did not see anything that alerted them to believe that he had knowledge or was in any way involved in Faye's disappearance at that time. Evidence leads us to believe that the deceased abducted and killed 6-year-old Faye Marie Swetlik.
And they didn't touch on it at the press conference out of respect for the Swetlik family, but they do now are telling us that Mr. Taylor committed suicide. Soon after that, that's when you heard that those Casey officers, separate from Director Snellgrove's discovery, went to that home on the back patio and found Cody Taylor there dead. And we also know, as you heard in that soundbite, they had interviewed him, they had searched the home. Director Snellgrove said a few times that they did not find anything that led them to believe that Faye Swetlik was there. However, he said he was not present for that original interview with Cody Taylor on Wednesday and was not sure exactly what was discussed during that interview. He did tell us that neighborhood had been searched 4 times between Monday and when the bodies were found Thursday. That's why they believe her body had not been there long in that spot. He also told us on the more than 700 gigabytes of surveillance camera footage they had, they did find some featuring Cody Taylor acting suspiciously. We asked him to elaborate on what that suspicious behavior was. He told us he could not, as it's still an active investigation. He also was asked if any suicide note was left or any message of that type. He said no. So there's still a lot of questions here as they try to determine what happened between Monday and Thursday when these bodies were found. He said they're not sure where Faye Swetlik was being held. Darcy, JR?
And Jacob, that was leading to my next question. There are just so many unknowns tonight. We don't know where Faye was from the moment she was killed Monday night until the morning her body was found on Thursday. We do know law enforcement officers went to Cody Taylor's home and they had no reason to suspect anything was afoul there. At least that's what we were told today. So again, just where Faye was for all those hours after she went missing is a mystery tonight.
JR, that's right. Director Snellgrove did get a few questions about that, but as he said, they're still trying to determine where she was from Monday night through Thursday when that body was found. And going back to the search and the interview, we know that happened on Wednesday. We know there was nothing allegedly in that interview or the search of the home that caused them to be suspicious or have any indication that Faye Swetlik was in that home on 602 Piccadilly Square, but he was talked to. The home was searched. We also know that Cody Taylor had a roommate. Law enforcement says they do not believe that roommate knew what was going on, was involved, or was even home most of last week. They do believe that Cody Taylor was the one solely responsible for this crime. However, the question of where she was and what exactly was happening Monday through Thursday is still up for lots of questions. We don't know. The biggest tell is that there was some of that security footage that shows Cody Taylor on it, and Director Snellgrove said now looking back, they know some of that behavior was suspicious. But like I said, I asked a follow-up question during this press conference for him to elaborate, and he would not. Reporting live here in Casey, I'm Jacob Reynolds.
Jacob, thank you so much.